Folks, welcome in to Thinking About DFS. The NFL season is back. Every week, myself, Davis Mattek, and Jacob Sanderson will go through every game in the main NFL DFS slate. We are going to be using the projections from Run the Sims this year, which means, Jacob, that we will actually have the market shares up as we go through. And if we think that the guys that Run the Sims are wrong, like maybe they don't know that Jalen Waddle is actually a 97% target share player, we can edit that ourselves right there in the applet, which is quite nice. We're back, man. Millions of dollars to be won playing NFL DFS. We're going to go through game by game, basically in whatever order they are set over on Run the Sims. They just so happen to begin with a game that's probably not that much of a fantasy bonanza, the Arizona Cardinals against the New Orleans Saints. Jacob, how freaking excited are we, man? It's unbelievable.
Dude, I mean, come week 13, I'll see a game like the Arizona Cardinals versus the New Orleans Saints, and we'll be like, fucking next. Like, I don't want to talk about this slot fest. But like right now, if all they would give us was an island game of the Arizona Cardinals and the New Orleans Saints, I would be like, inject this into my veins. Like let's go. Like, there's nothing more I want to watch on this earth than Spencer Rattler right now. So yeah, it's just this is everything is perfect. Everything is full of sunshine and rainbows and happiness. Great time to be alive. Cannot wait to watch Mr. Rattler attempt to take on the Arizona Cardinals.
I can't either. So let's begin on the Arizona side, because I think the context is that the Saints defense might actually be okay. Only a 24.5 point team total here for the Arizona Cardinals. Team total for the Saints, 18.3. That's not a lot of points. Not a ton of fantasy options over there on the New Orleans Saints. James Conner, I think, is the ultimate.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't spend all offseason drafting him in best ball, but we get to week one, and I am startled.
Some of us might not have. Some of us might not have.
I mean, look, I drafted 8.3% of everyone. I mean, we could just get it out of the way right now. Like, James Conner is basically the best play that is not Saquon Barkley, that is not Jamar Chase, that is not, a guy who was going in the first 25 picks of fantasy football drafts.
Yeah.
Like when we would get, I'm going to guess, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm going to guess James Conner's projected for more raw points than guys like Devin A-Chain, guys like Ashton Jeanty. It's a totally nutted spot. And this is even with giving Amari DiMercato a little bit of work, giving Kyler Murray probably more of a rush share, honestly, than he might deserve based on the evidence. I don't think there's really anything interesting to say about James Conner. He'll probably be my most, in BRs, probably be my most drafted running back, probably be my most owned running back on DraftKings. Just think that it's basically Saints running backs versus the Saints is that going to be one of just the nutted spots all year? So they're just going to give up 22 points a game to opposing running back ones.
Yeah, seems pretty likely. I mean, we've all been doing this whole bit where the Arizona Cardinals defense went from the hipster pick 2 months ago at the end of FFPC drafts to being taken in the 14th round last week of FFPC drafts. And people just didn't realize if this mediocre defense is actually the number one defense because their schedule is so unbelievably easy for the first 6 weeks. Maybe James Conner is going to be an incredible fast start player during those first 6 weeks playing the dregs of the NFL. I cannot relate to having 8% of James Conner in Best Ball Mania. We're sitting there at a nice 14%. I hope he gets into the end zone several times on Sunday once the season started. Yeah, he's going to be a really strong play. Also, gotta say, I'm about 95% of the way through writing the Week 1 Hitchhiker's Guide. The amount of joy that came back into my body writing things like, watch to see whether Amari DiMercato maintains the long down and distance rule for the Arizona Cardinals ahead of Trey Benson. Just oh my God. It's just so good to be back.
They're so back. Yes. Guys, if you want all of the information you need about running back threes and which running back twos to pick up on your fantasy football team, make sure that you guys are signing up for Thinking About Thinking. A link to that is in the description of this show. Now, 2 things, I guess. One, is Marvin Harrison Jr. at $5,500 playable? I think 7% actually might skew a little bit high on his ownership. McBride, frankly, I actually just don't see myself getting there because he's $300 less than Brock Bowers. And Brock Bowers, to me, I mean, I don't even care what the projection is. I just think Brock Bowers is just better. And George Kittle is in like a fairly nutted spot with Juwan Jennings only having a week of practice, Brandon Ayuk out, Ricky Pearsall, we all got over our skis, I think, a little bit on him. And then do you view Kamara at $6,300 as playable?
Yeah, I think Kamara 100% playable. He is going to have probably the best workload he's going to have all year right out of the gate. There's no reason for the team to put a lot of faith in Kendra Miller or Devin Neal. There's no reason for the team to view their season as lost yet, where their goal is to find out about younger players. This is going to be, they're going to delude themselves into thinking they have a chance to win this game, and they're going to try to do that through Alvin Kamara. He's going to be one of the best projecting backs on the slate, and their team total is low, but their team total is going to be low all year. So
right,
if you want to play Alvin Kamara, this is the week to play Alvin Kamara. I think he's a totally fine play. He's a nice leverage play off James Conner if this game is maybe more competitive than you would think. He's probably the piece of this game outside of the obvious James Conner that I'm going to play most frequently. I kind of agree with you on McBride that the team total's higher for them than Vegas. So he's I think projecting marginally better than Brock Bowers. I am who I am. So if I'm going to spend up at tight end this week, I'm going to be doing it through Mr. Bowers, of course. For me, it's Connor, it's Kamara. I think Harrison is interesting. Kind of the theme this week is because the pricing is way softer.
So soft,
right? You go through the projections game by game, you will never see more positive value expectation players than you do in week 1, right? You get into week 10 and we're talking about the most popular plays being a negative 0.6 value projection. And here it's there's green in every single game. So if you can find guys that project fine to good that are going to be 5 to 10% owned, I think those are guys you want to play. I don't know if Harrison is my personal favorite, but I do think that's the type of play that makes a lot of sense because we're going to get plays that only project 1 or 2 points worse per dollar than some of the 20% owned guys that are going to come in under 10% just because there are so many options that project totally fine this week.
Yeah. And I mean, you're basically just going to have to make your decision. Also, I mean, we should just a structural note as we get in here. This will probably be the worst that projections are going to be for the entire season.
Right.
There's just going to be things that projections just miss. One of the examples in my head is Trevion Henderson. Any projection on Trevion Henderson is a guess. He could be anywhere from a 18% rush share to a 60% rush share. He could be anywhere from an 8% target share to a 20% target share. His efficiency stuff could be off. I'm looking at these projections right now for the Saints, 21-ish% target share for Olave, 19.5% for Shaheed, 12% for Cooks. I mean, that could be right. That could be wrong. It could be 30% for Olave. It could be 0%. Brandon Cooks could not earn a target in this game. That really wouldn't be surprising to me. So those are some of the decisions that you have to make. Let's move on to a game that actually skews towards being a little bit more interesting than maybe the line would state. The New York Football Giants at the Washington Commanders, 25.5 point team total for the Commanders, 19.5 point team total for the New York Giants. I do think Neighbors ends up going almost criminally underowned for a player who could have a 30% target share. Malik Neighbors could lead this slate in total targets. I am probably going to make a point. I will probably play between 3 and 10 single entry, 3 max lineups. I honestly haven't even started to look at contests yet. I'm still wrapping up best ball drafts right now. I think Neighbors is one of the stone best. I'm not touching any of the Giants running backs. I think that is one where the what do you win when you win is not good enough. Even if Tracy does have an 80% share of the backfield, I don't think it matters. The Commander side, more interesting. They have one of the better team totals of the slate. Jaden Daniels, this ownership, which on Run the Sims is going to skew towards large field tournaments, is quite low because I think Jaden Daniels is going to be the cash game quarterback. And anytime that is the case, it's going to skew higher in tournaments. But I think Debo at 5,200 looks like one of the more intriguing plays. What do you have on this game?
Yep, I agree with everything you said about the Giants. It's Neighbors or log out for me. Tracy is a perfectly fine managed league RB2. But I think, given how many games are on the slate, given how much uncertainty there is with some of these really high upside spots, it would take a long list for me to get down to Mr. Tracy. I don't think that I will. The Washington side is fascinating. You have this situation where, like you said, Jayden Daniels probably going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate, certainly in the top 2. And then neither of the Washington receivers project amazingly. But what I've seen so far is that Terry McLaurin seems to be getting kind of dragged up despite projecting objectively badly, just because someone wants to stack a Washington pass catcher with Daniels.
Correct.
I would probably go with Samuel out of the 2 of them, just for that reason. But I don't even think it's necessary. I think there's nothing wrong with playing a naked Jayden Daniels, or what I'll probably do, to be honest, is just not play Jayden Daniels lineups this week. And then the fascinating thing is, what the hell happens at the Washington running back position? It looks like Run the Sims has projected all 4 of Austin Eckler, Chris Rodriguez, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and Jeremy Nichols to be active. I think that's one of 3 distinct possibilities. Jeremy McNichols is a core special teamer. It's really hard to imagine how he is not active on game day. Yeah. At the same time, he is probably the 4th most likely Washington running back to receive a carry on any given snap over the course of the season. So do they make all 4 running backs active, or does Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt get scratched, or does Chris Rodriguez get scratched? I think all 3 of those are legitimate possibilities. If you trust the unofficial beat reports, Bill was listed as the RB4. If you trust the which order did they go through team drills in, Chris Rodriguez is the RB4. It is definitely a fascinating spot. I don't think either Rodriguez or Merritt are in play for DFS, but if one of them were to be scratched, I definitely think Austin Eckler becomes in play for DFS, because now it's only basically a 2-person committee in terms of touches, with McNichols, I don't think, figuring in a major way to the actual running back rotation either way, and primarily being there for special teams value. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to monitor on Sunday morning. I think that's where everybody would like to see a Jay Glazer report on what is going to happen in the Washington backfield. My guess is that I think there's a world in which I could see myself playing Eckler. I don't think there's really that much upside to playing Rodriguez or Krosky-Merritt. But at $4,000, if the other one was to be inactive, then it's at least worth considering.
I would consider it more if I thought there was any path to either of them generating 4 receptions, and I just think that's like totally implausible. Like Brian Robinson, by hook or by crook, had a couple games where he generated receiving production, and like honestly, in the context of what I expect to happen, I would think like Jeremy McNichols actually is more likely to generate a reception on a given snap than either one of them.
But if we had played Brian Robinson at $4,000 against the New York Giants, like he would have been like 20% owned last year, 25% owned last year.
Well, a key element is like you'd like, and you'll realize this as we go through, like you don't even really need it, because the wide receivers, like the way they did the pricing is like, I think off the top of my head, Jamar Chase is 7,300. Christian McCaffrey is like free. So it's just like, on maybe in week 9 after prices had like totally bent, because what happens on DraftKings is the pricing is dynamic, but it never comes back down. It just for whatever, it never comes back down on DraftKings.
Right. You just get more and more squeezed throughout the season.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like, am I going to tell you you're wrong to play either of Chris Rodriguez or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt if in fact the other one is inactive? Absolutely not. Like, I think it's actually, particularly if they are going to be like legitimately like 2% owned or whatever, then I think it's pretty strong, but that is something we're not going to know. Debo, I think, is a really interesting play in non-Jayden Daniels lineups, because one of the things you should take away from that conversation is, well, what if Debo kind of returns to a 2021, 2022 Debo role where he is just like routinely receiving carries in the goal line? I mean, actually, he was receiving carries around the goal line last season before he got injured, before he got injured and before he got pneumococcal pneumonia. I believe actually in the Jordan Mason breakout game against the Vikings, if I remember correctly, Mason did not score because Debo got 2 cracks at a goal line touchdown. So I think it is something that we could see.
And he gets, I think, a slight upgrade too if either Merritt or Rodriguez gets scratched.
I agree. The Las Vegas Raiders are traveling to play at the New England Patriots, a West Coast team traveling east. I have no idea how long they've been there. I'll just say $6,500 for Brock Bowers, a patently absurd price. He is my favorite straight up play on DraftKings.com. I can't see because normally the thing that holds you back from spending on tight end is the high end ceiling of other wide receivers are unattainable if you are playing a $6,000, $7,000 tight end. That is not true in this slate. I don't care if Kittle projects better. I don't care if McBride projects better. This is a guy who I think we've not even come close to seeing the ceiling on. My guess is they also sort of wean Gene in a little bit. Like, I'm not expecting 25 touches for Gene in this game, which is not to say that Gene is not playable, anything like that. That is just kind of my guess. Like, I wonder if Raheem Mostert might even get the ceremonial first carry for the team.
I
Just
don't
to
think so.
I hope not. I hope not. But I just think this is just like kind of an unreal spot for Bowers.
So I think on the Bowers front, yeah, I mean, I tend to not ever roster elite tight ends on DraftKings.com. It's just
So
not usually
hard.
how I
It's just
build.
so hard.
It's really difficult. Yeah. So, I want to savor this opportunity to put Brock Bowers into my lineup in DFS because I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think, by week 9, my Brock Bowers main event teams are going to be 2-6. And I'm not going to have the salary to play him in DFS. And my best ball teams are all dead, and I'm going to be sad. So like now's the time to live large. So I'll definitely have a Brock Bowers entry. I kind of disagree on the Genty front, and then
Hit
I'll
me.
add this. So I this is again no time more fun and more enthusiastic writing the Hitchhiker's Guide than week 1. I did like 2 paragraphs on whether Dylan Laube is going to be active and what that says about Ashton Genty's pass catching role.
Core special teamer Dylan Laube.
Yeah, so I think it's what's fascinating is like Mostert is probably the primary backup. Mostert is not going to play in any sort of third downs or 2-minute drill situations.
Mm-mm.
And then whether Laube does is, I think, a legitimate question. My guess is no, but maybe. And that is kind of the most decisive factor, I think, on like just how high Genty's snap share can get. I expect Mostert to get like 1 drive per half, is kind of what I view his role as. And I actually think Genty is a little bit under projected. I think maybe this probably just comes down to the Raiders being 2.5 point underdogs in New England, and their team total probably sucks. And I think that's why we're getting like, I think, under projections on Genty and on Brock Bowers.
And the Patriots are absolutely happy to gum a game up. Like, the Patriots are not going to be in a ton of like high scoring shootouts this year.
Right. It's not a great game environment. Yeah.
What will be interesting is, I think something we'll be writing about and thinking about is what pace of play will the Raiders use? Is it going to be more like what Chip Kelly was doing at Ohio State, which was just a much more, I wouldn't call it vanilla, but just like a much more normal paced offense. They weren't like running to the line of scrimmage. Or is it more what we got from Chip Kelly at basically every other stop in his career? Was what he was doing at New Hampshire, what he was doing at Oregon, what he was doing with the 49ers, what he was doing with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I certainly hope it errs on the side of being quicker and faster paced. Sadly for the New England Patriots, I don't think they have one playable player. I mean, you could do Diggs at 5,300.
They have Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is the playable New England Patriot.
I would play Zach Ertz over Hunter Henry. Thoughts on that?
Sure. I don't know. I think it's like, well, if once you get into the punt tight ends, it's like what fits in the salary hole you have left. Like Hunter Henry's fine. Zach Ertz is fine. Several other Ertz Henry types are fine. But yeah, he would be the only guy. Like, is it possible that Trevion has a bigger workload than we all envision, and he breaks
definitely
off a 60-yard touchdown? Of course, it's possible. Do I think it's necessary to play that game in week 1 when there are like a gazillion other running back bets? No, I don't. No. I think you'll have more time to be 1 week early on the Trevion Henderson bet, in which I'm guessing that the folks on this program will be more inclined to take that bet. And then it's like do you want to play Stephon Diggs as an old man week 1 post ACL? Like, not.
Well, if you're going to play, I think you could make a convincing argument. This is the week to play him. This will be the healthiest that there was just a little bit of chatter about him maybe being limited. And then they said he's not going to be limited, but keep in mind, this is a guy who has not seen game action since the game. I don't believe he played in the preseason. So, this is a guy who has not seen any game action since he tore his ACL.
I guess you could play Drake May. I mean, he's going to run. And
wouldn't you rather play Fields if you were going to be doing a one-off running quarterback?
I think no. Like, I think I would rather play May. That game, we'll get to it, but like the Jets-Steelers game environment just is horrific.
I mean,
like there might not be 100 total plays in that game. And I mean, the Raiders, we don't know what the Raiders are going to be yet, but their defense projects to be pretty bad. And they might play really fast on offense. We don't know, but they certainly have a way better chance of being fast on offense than the Steelers. So I think that you could play May. And then I guess if you do play May, then you definitely want to stack with one of Diggs or Hunter Henry. I might have a May lineup. I think that would be totally fine.
You can take the man out of best ball season, but you can't take the slap out of the man. That's what they say. A game, I think this is certainly a potential bonanza game, the Carolina Panthers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think there's assumptions being made by the betting market that has the total for this perhaps a smidgen too low. 21.5-point team total for the Panthers, 25-point team total for the Jaguars. What if Bryce Young is good? Have we pondered what if Bryce Young is good? I mean, best ball drafters have certainly been pondering what if Bryce Young is good. It does not look like the Vegas markets have pondered near as much if Bryce Young is good. What if the Panthers tilt more pass heavy in year 2 under Dave Canales instead of just simply handing the ball off to Chuba Hubbard every second play? And then perhaps the most intriguing question in all of week 1, has Liam Cohen fixed Trevor Lawrence? There was a great quote in an Athletic article yesterday from a couple defensive coordinators, and one of the defensive coordinators said Liam Cohen was the only offensive coordinator that had defensive coordinators guessing for the entirety of the 2024 NFL season. It was the only game that he felt that the offensive coordinator was ahead of them. Travis Hunter is $5,000 DraftKings dollars. Brian Thomas Jr. is $6,800 DraftKings dollars. Brendan Strange at $3,300, by the way, I think is not nothing. This would probably be my guess for a game that has the greatest ability to see like 780 combined passing yards of just like the teams just kind of get in the trenches with each other. They realize neither of them can really run, and we see quite a bit of quick passing.
Yeah, these defenses both blow. I think these offenses are both really fun. It's the battle of former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinators. We get Canales versus Cohen. Who really did save Baker Mayfield's career? We'll find out. Yeah, I think this is a fun one. I think that Lawrence doubles vary in play. I think my favorite iteration of that would be, I guess I'm a coward, Lawrence, Thomas, Brenton Strange. But I think Travis Hunter at $5,000 is firmly playable.
Let me tell you, if Travis Hunter has an 82% route share in this game, this will be the lowest he will ever be projected and the lowest his projected ownership will ever be. Like, this was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. If he was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, like think in your mind right now, if this week, Saturday morning, Liam Cohen or someone associated with the Jaguars says, you know what, actually, Hunter was kind of banged up a little bit in the preseason. We're actually just not going to play him on defense in this game. We're going to give him another week. We're just going to let him play offense in this game, kind of get his feet wet. What does that do to his projection? What does that do to his ownership? I think both things go north by like 20% of the stated, like, so he's 4% owned now. So he ends up going to 6%. His projection goes from 10 to 12, and then he looks much more playable.
I mean, Hunter is definitely the probably the number 1 candidate for what does Jay Glazer tweet at 12:42 Eastern Standard Time about Mr. Hunter's.
No, it's definitely Ja'Cory. It's definitely JCM and Chris Rodriguez, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But I think that Hunter is up there. Yeah. It's hard to know. He's going to be obviously one of the hardest players to project in week 1. And so, like, basically whatever you see on your screen for Travis Hunter, just know that like as smart as the people, this is no knock on the smart people behind Run the Sims or whatever
projection provider. They're guessing.
Whatever projection provider you're using. The people that are providing those projections are very smart people, but they are functionally no different than us when it comes to sitting at their computer going, when it comes to Travis Hunter's week 1 role. Like, nobody fucking knows. I don't even think Liam Cohen fully knows, but he probably has a better idea than we do. Yeah, I will have at least one Travis Hunter lineup because I want to have fun. I think Brian Thomas, though, it's also a great play. I think Strange is a great play. I think Lawrence is a great play. He's going to be very owned. I think I'm gonna take the over on the 5.3 that is listed there for Trevor Lawrence. That's for sure. And then I wish this was like a tighter pricing week because I am really tempted to play Tank Bigsby at $4,600.
There's literally,
but I just don't think you need to. I just don't think it's necessary.
What if Tootin is a healthy scratch for LaQuint Allen?
Yeah, I think that's like actually quite possible. I put the odds at 40% in the Hitchhiker's Guide that Tootin will be a healthy inactive this week. But it's like a weighted coin flip between the two of them. And that helps. I think, what is Tootin? So Run the Sims has him projected at 3.4 points. That's probably pretty reasonable. You split those 50-50 between Bigsby and Etienne. And now you have two, slightly more playable players.
Etienne, by the way, could actually be like a relatively strong play here if we are under the assumption that Etienne is very likely to get phased out because he always gets injured. Like, what I'm thinking is like what like Rachaad White's workload was at the beginning of last season in like a very similar circumstance. To begin last year, I mean, he was brutally inefficient because he's Rachaad White. But he played 70%, 73% of the snaps and had 18 targets the first 3 games of the season for the Buccaneers last year. Right. And I think Etienne, when healthy, is probably a little bit better than Rachaad White. But and the Panthers, the Panthers were statistically the worst ever defense in the NFL last season. Most points allowed ever.
Yeah, I mean, here's why I think that Bigsby or Etienne are like more playable maybe than you do. So looking here, there's 25 combined fantasy points that have been projected by Run the Sims between Bigsby, Etienne, and Tootin. Now, I understand DraftKings has bonuses and stuff. I don't know how much of the bonuses are baked into these projections. I'm guessing not a lot. That would pace for what Tampa Bay was last year, which was the second most expected fantasy points in the NFL per game within their backfield, 25 total. Like, this is projecting close to 50-50 on the ground, and Etienne gets the majority of the receiving work. That's, I guess, like the modal outcome, but the error bars on that are massive. Nobody really knows what the split's going to be. It could be Etienne is getting 65% of the rushing and all of the passing work, and Bigsby is just a change of pace back, in which case Etienne should probably be projected for like 15.5 points and be one of the most owned running backs on the slate. It could be that Etienne is a glorified third down back, and Bigsby is going to have 21 carries and all of the goal line work, in which case, the projection should be completely flipped between the two of them, and he's $4,600. It's a spot where there is a lot of total projected production in this backfield because of the 25+ team total against a terrible run defense. But neither is projecting that great because we don't know what the split's going to be. And it's being split as fairly even, but there's no reason that has to be the case. So I think it's worth exploring. I think I might just stay away because of how loose everything is. If Tootin's active, if Tootin gets the inactive, I definitely want to be taking shots on one or both of Bigsby and Etienne.
Yep. I think you're spot on there. The Bonanza game. This is it. Whatever the final score of this game is will determine who wins money. If this game goes under its posted total, if the Cleveland Browns offense is super disappointing, not able to push the Bengals in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be massive. Cincinnati Bengals traveling to play at Cleveland, 26.5 point team total for the Bengals, 21 point team total for the Cleveland Browns. Seeming like there's basically no way for Quinshon Judkins to play in this game. He's not signed. It's Thursday, September 4th at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. Most recent thing I saw was some relatively Associated Cleveland reporter saying that it's expected to be a 2 to 4 game suspension if and when he does. Not that any of this is really important, but just it explains why Jerome Ford is projecting for ownership and projecting pretty decently. Do you have it in you to play a Joseph Flacco lineup in salary cap DFS?
I certainly have it in me. Certainly have it in me. I mean, $1,400, again, it's not like you need it, but then you have it. And it's going to be fun. I think that they are going to run an insane amount of plays in this game. And like, I know that Sims can't fully account for the upside in plays run sometimes just because
I mean, this 62.8 and 59.9 Run the Sims
like,
has this projected for the most plays.
Right. But like the thing is, like, they are at the end of the day, like, servants to an algorithm. But like the Browns could run 81 plays in this game. Like the Bengals are going to score all over them, and they are going to score explosively, or at least they can, right? Like there are scenarios for this game in which Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have a 50-yard touchdown each in the first half, and the entire second half is Joe Flacco dropping back and chucking at 4 yards at a time in turbo speed mode, where it's just short completion, incompletion, short completion, incompletion. Like we've seen Flacco over the last 2 years in both Indianapolis and Cleveland just lead to some of these turbocharged plays run games where it could be like 78 plays, 82 plays. Like that's in play. The play ceiling for the Browns is higher than any team this week in the NFL. And so I think that there's a lot of upside through all these projections. And I think you're interested in all of them. The only one who I think is going to get, I think David Njoku is projected under-owned right here. I'm going to guess that gets closer to like 15%. In this spot, I think that he might get a little bit uncomfortable, but I think you're going to be fine playing Judy and Tillman. And then I think the split projection between Sampson and Ford is too wide for my taste. I think that should be split closer to 50-50. And I'm going to be playing Dylan Sampson this week.
You're playing Dylan Sampson instead of Jerome Ford. All right, give me your take. I'm all ears.
Well, so I mean, the reason why Jerome Ford is projected higher, I think, is partially reasonable, which is just like veteran deference, track record, all that stuff. And then it's also because like Mary Kay Cabot said that Jerome Ford would be the leader. Mary Kay Cabot, with all due respect, has never been right about anything in her entire life.
I was going to say, honestly, very, very little due respect.
For she's never once been right. And she also said that Quinshon Judkins might play this week, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Like in what universe was Quinshon Judkins going to show up to the facility for the first time since rookie camp, sign a contract on Wednesday, and just suit up on 1st and 10? Like that was an insane suggestion. So I put very little stock in that, especially because they only played one dress rehearsal game with the starters. Dylan Sampson started the game. He played the first 2 snaps, and he stayed out for 3rd and 8. They ended up having an even distribution of snaps between Ford and Sampson. But yeah, I think it's like it could go in any direction. Would I project if I had to bet my life on who plays more snaps? Would I pick Jerome Ford? Yes. Do I think like historically, he's the passing down guy, he probably plays more on trail script? Sure. But you're giving me a basically unowned $4,900 back who I think has a very plausible path to playing 40 to 45 snaps in this game, who started the preseason game for his team, and who I think is just better than Jerome Ford. I'm very interested in that. And this is like several of the projections we've talked about, like very much a guess by any source that could easily be wrong. So I'm assuming that it is wrong. I think Dylan Sampson is the higher scoring Cleveland Browns running back this week, and I'm going to be playing it as though that's the case.
All right, on the Cincinnati side, these are the things you have to determine. First is Burrow better as a high salaried priority than Jaden Daniels, as in who is more likely to be found in a winning lineup? Joe Burrow with one of his teammates, Jaden Daniels with one of his teammates, Jaden Daniels with an all-star cadre of guys, right? Because that's one of the things that you see happen in week 1 is the salary looseness creates weirdness in which you can just play, like you could get closer to the quote unquote perfect lineup. I am leaning towards the best way to do Burrow is just Burrow, Jamar Chase with other plays that I really like, as opposed to doing Burrow and T, Burrow, Chase and T, Burrow, Gesicki, Chase, like whatever. I think the Fant weirdness and Gesicki having the hamstring injury makes that pretty problematic. I also think it's almost like 100% that the Bengals have 4 tight ends active: Fant, Gesicki, Sample, and Hudson, which is just, I mean, the Bengals are so insanely annoying. My favorite way to play this game, surprising no one, is actually Joe Flacco, Jerry Jeudy, and then one of the Bengals wide receivers that you just get a little bit of both. And I'm not, I mean, I think a lot of the evidence is with the game stacking stuff is that it's pretty bad and that you are sacrificing too much in projection to get there. But in this game, you're not sacrificing that much projection to get there. I mean, Run the Sims has Jamar Chase for 19.9 points. I believe that is the second highest raw projection of the slate, behind only Christian McCaffrey. So I'm into Flacco. I'm into Burrow. I mean, I would say the play that I like more than the market the most is Jerry Jeudy. I mean, even if he is the 6th most owned wide receiver or whatever, he'll be more owned than that in my lineups. I think this man, I mean, he led the National Football League in routes last year. This is, you know what this is like? This is very similar to our experience with Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs on our co-owned NFFC team last year. We're like, any game Flacco started, we were like, oh, well, we're just starting both those guys automatically.
My favorite play in this whole game is probably Chase Brown, because I think people are going to be very excited to play the Bengals doubles. And zooming out, what if we just play the running back who's going to get literally every single touch against the worst team in the NFL? I think that seems like a good plan to me. I'm going to be very excited about playing him. As for how you handle the Bengals doubles and singles and everything like that, I feel like there's like several countervailing motivations. On one hand, normally it's like functionally impossible to play the Burrow, Chase, Higgins double because it's just too expensive and there's not enough salary to be saved elsewhere. If you want it this week, you can definitely play it. Like, you can 100% fit it in. They're not priced very highly. They all project well at cost. And there are several viable ways to save salary around it. But that being said, I do wonder, in a week where, like, I'm more into doing the big game stacks in weeks that suck projection wise, right?
Totally.
Because
Great point.
Because, like, you know, you get in a few bye weeks, you have a bunch of injuries. It's like one of those weeks where if you load up ETR, they have the green and you don't see any green. It's just an ever ending run of red. All the projection sucks. And it's like, okay, this is a spot where I want to just go all in on one game. And I hope this game has 60 points and everything else sucks. That's not really this week. There's no bye weeks. There's no injuries. Everyone projects well. So it's like, do I want to eat up 5 of my lineup spots on one game? Because now that almost has to go like 45 to 40 for that to pay off, because otherwise someone's not hitting their apex outcome. And so I think I'm going to try to avoid, like, if this was a week 9 game, I would be doing stuff like Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Dylan Sampson, David Njoku.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to do that.
Unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. I think it caps their upside too much. If you're playing in a 50 entry tournament, by all means.
Sure. Yeah, Thunderdome. Michael Leone probably wins the Thunderdome.
Right.
With this, like,
Yeah.
you know, Shady might have some crazy Joe Burrow combinations that are like totally unowned that are plus EV in his stuff. But for mere mortals, I think we probably do our best to leave that alone.
Like, I tend to play in like the 300 to 1,000 entry kind of range, and that's a range where I think that you can do some of the big overstacks, but probably not this week. I'm gonna be mostly Burrow and one of his pass catchers and one Brown type of lineups.
Yeah. All right, a game that we won't have to talk about very often. The Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to play the New York Football Jets. Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Warren, DK Metcalf. These are unplayable options to me in this slate. I think you could do a little bit of naked fields. I think Brees in like large field lotto stuff, like if you're playing in the Millionaire Maker, I think you could certainly just be like, well, this is a guy who has been a top 10 asset in fantasy football who is going to be 4% owned. I think even Garrett Wilson is loosely unplayable, honestly. Like, what would his target share, I think, would have to get north of 25% for him to have an awesome spot here. This is just a brutal game. I honestly got nothing.
This game stinks. I'll play none of it. Warren probably projects fine, but I'm like not gonna fall for that. He's like a great way to get.
Not even
He's a
that
great
good
way to
because you got to
get
give
like.
Gainwell a little.
Yeah, well, that's a lot. I'm gonna take the under on 6.4 Kenny Gainwell points, but yeah, I just think like even the Warren thing, like he projects fine, but what's gonna happen if you play Jalen Warren is you're gonna be like, man, his role does look pretty nice. Oh my god, I just got 14.4 points. Oh shoot, like some other running back in a game that has not 83 total plays. Just had like 32, and I didn't have access to him because I played Jalen Warren against the Jets. So I'm gonna pass on every single part of this football game.
Yep, handshake emoji. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. These games between these two teams were some of the best ones in like all of fantasy football last year. Famously, Darnell Mooney, your boy, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers merchant. We have Baker Mayfield at 6,600. Bucky Irving at 71 will not really be owned in this spot. Sadly, this Emeka Egbuka ownership that I assume has not even come close to being finalized yet, because the Emeka Egbuka ownership in the SPY, the $100 single entry that I think is basically the slappiest contest in fantasy football. I mean, Emeka Egbuka might touch 35% ownership in that contest, and I'm not even willing to say that it's wrong. Falcons side, I think Bijan will actually be a little bit underowned because McCaffrey projects so well. London, strong. Mooney, strong. And in fact, if you told me that you think this game is better than Cincinnati Cleveland because the quarterbacks on both sides, like the sum of the quarterback skill in this game is better because it doesn't include 42-year-old Joseph Flacco, I wouldn't even say you're wrong. I think this game has a strong chance of actually being the best fantasy game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited about the lack of ownership on the Falcons side. I think there's a ton of upside in their passing game. I am a little worried about the Caleb McGarry thing, but that sort of that side doesn't bother me because I can't read
might backdoor them into extra play volume because they're in more like obvious passing situations.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in playing the Penix doubles. Like, is it rational to have watched the Alabama Florida State game and just like become like infinitely more into Michael Penix? I feel like that's rational. Like I'm like the killing divorce stinks. Like, come on, let's Michael Penix is carrying that offense.
All his wide receivers stink. I mean, it's not illogical.
Yeah. So I'm very into this game. And I think it's going to be underowned. I'm very into Bucky. I think he is being a little bit underprojected across the industry. It is a shocker. I know. Like what do they have as the split right now between Irving and White points wise? Can you scroll up?
Yes, we've got 14.
Yeah, so like 14.1 and 9.6. That is like just not correct. Like that is not going to be right. It should be like 17.1 and 6.6.
Giving them equivalent passing shares is, because I know how they do this. A lot of what is going on in week 1 is stuff being regressed to NFL averages in terms of like route shares. So like Rachaad White and Bucky Irving might run the same number of routes in this game because Rachaad White will be the long down and distance, but Rachaad White and Bucky Irving's targets per route run is not going to be the same. Yeah. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and even the carries I think are off. And this isn't. I'm not criticizing Run the Sims because I've noticed this. I was looking across the whole industry at Tampa Bay Week 1 projections, and I think it's just wrong. I think that the entirety of the industry has crafted this narrative this offseason that the split in Tampa Bay is going to look more like the middle third of the season than the last third of the season. And maybe that's right, but I'm just really, really confident that is a complete misread on the Tampa backfield.
It will definitely be right some of the games. Like it will definitely be right for portions of the season because they're not going to give Bucky 330 touches or whatever.
I think they're going to give Bucky 330 touches.
I would take the under on that. I take the under on 300 for Bucky, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, because he's going to get hurt. But like whatever 300 divided by 17 is per game, I will take. I think that is like going to be roughly correct.
Okay.
I just think like Rachaad White got 10 carries in his last 4 games, each of which was a must-win game. These were games to win the division and in the playoffs. And people have decided
it was 40 touches to 3 touches, basically in their final 3 games, the games that really mattered for them.
Yeah, and sorry, I said 10 touches. That's wrong. It's 10 carries. But he had 10 carries over the last 4 games, which included a playoff game and 3 borderline must-win games to win their division. And that came at the end of a season in which Bucky Irving was a day 3 pick who had to go from pure backup to timeshare back to lead back to ultimately kind of a pseudo workhorse. And I guess I just don't think that's something you wind back the clock on. I think that is a Herculean effort to make that big of a jump over the course of 1 year as a starter. He continued to look great every time that they amped up his role more. All the reporting has been that they're completely in love with him. There's been some lip service to Rachaad White, but I think we see Bucky handle like not like, you know, this carry share is essentially if we get rid of the Baker carries and like the wide receiver carries, this suggests he's going to see approximately 60% of the running back rush share. I think that is an underestimate. I think he's going to see closer to 70 to 75% of the running back rush share. And it says he's going to see, you know, less than half of the targets. I think he's going to see closer to 2/3. And again, this is not a run the Sims issue. This is like everywhere I've looked across the industry, this split to me is too tight. Bucky Irving, I think, just is far closer to the elite running backs in terms of his weekly projection than I think the industry has it. I might be wrong on that, and I'll revise in the coming weeks if that's the case. But I think that's an angle that I think is not being factored into projections that will leave him under-owned. And I'm going to assume that I'm right, and I'm going to try to exploit that the first couple of weeks of DFS and play him a lot.
I like it. I mean, I think that is something that, like, if you feel really strongly about one of those situations and it's backed by like thinking and data, then it's a spot that you should exploit. 2 things on the Falcons side. The first is I wonder if there's a little bit of residual lower ownership on Mooney than his projection would imply because he's had this shoulder injury and he just hasn't been front of mind. And then also Bijan is going to end up being lower owned than you would think just because McCaffrey projects so well and is $700 less in salary, but obviously they have very similar ceilings. And I think you could make quite a convincing argument that we actually have not seen Bijan's NFL ceiling yet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think this is a great spot to play Bijan Robinson. He's going to project really, really well. I think every single key Falcon is in play, right? I mean, part of the fun, and you can see it in the projections on your screen. Like, look at the wide receiver projections right now: Drake London, Mooney, McLeod, and then drop off the face of the earth, right? Like, this is the fun part.
They were one of, I believe they were one of the only teams in the entire NFL last season who had multiple games of 3 wide receivers running 90% or more of the routes.
Right. So like, you know, I just went and I was just picking grievances with Run the Sims about the Bucky Irving projections. This is something they have 1,000,000% correct. It's like there are 3 wide receivers on the Atlanta Falcons that run routes and then nobody else. And so that residual that like, well, we got to leave a couple points here, a couple points there does not apply to this team, which makes it really fun. It makes it really condensed. So I think, yeah, you can play if you want to. I think it's totally viable. I know Penix might not project that well, but there's a lot of uncertainty. He's played 3 NFL games. I think if you want to play Penix plus 2 of London, Mooney, Pitts, bring it back with your favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneer, okay with me.
Yep.
And I'll say on the last point, just one more thing about, it's not about Bucky in particular, but I think this is a week where whatever your take is, you might think I'm nuts about the Bucky Irving thing, but I almost guarantee you, if you think through and you look through the projections on a granular level, and what's really fun about this is you can see not just the final number, but you see the inputs, right? You see, well, what percentage of carries are they giving out to each player? What percentage of receiving targets are they giving out to each player? And you can ask yourself, do you think those are the right inputs or not? Because the people who are doing this are better at it than you are and than I am in the aggregate. Obviously, they have a better process.
But they're gonna miss stuff that just
Right.
happens.
They're guessing, right? Like the output based on the inputs is extremely sound. But the inputs are based on every one of these sites, some person or a collection of people making guesses, right? That's how these inputs are going in. And you also get to be a person making guesses, and you get to play the what if game. What if actually this player's rushing share is 75%, not 55%? How would that affect the projections? How would that affect the ownership? And there's going to be spots 100% that the projections are just off on the inputs in week one because it's the most volatile week. And so try to pick, I think, a spot or two where you think the inputs might be wrong. You think they might be materially wrong. And if they were wrong, it would drastically change how this slate would look, and exploit that. And maybe you'll be wrong, and maybe I'll be wrong. But I think it's a good way to think about week one DFS.
Yeah, that is, by the way, the edge in using Run the Sims is the only public facing sim that takes into account your changes to projections. Like when you do it on this, no disrespect or anything to the solver, but when you change the projection on the solver, they're still functioning off of their base projection. This changes the sim based on you saying, oh, I actually think Bijan gets 21 points or whatever. All right. Your team, the Indianapolis Colts, are hosting the Miami Dolphins. God forbid, man. I can't believe we're here. I'm ready to do this. I'll get it out of the way early. My flag plant this week, it's not Jalen Waddle. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Tyreek Hill. I can't. First off, Tyreek Hill, phenomenal play. Jonathan Taylor, phenomenal play. Jalen Waddle, phenomenal play. The Dolphins have such a bad defense. I think that this could be like we could see 52 to a dropbacks in this game. That's how bad their defense is, and probably a Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is the Mitch Trubisky Memorial Award winner of shittiest quarterback to win multiple millionaire makers.
Yeah, I mean, this game is going to be, I think, low-key fun because neither of these defenses are very impressive. And it's going to be played indoors on a fast track. Shane Steichen has typically liked playing very fast. A big reason why they started Daniel Jones seems to be that like he's just like more capable of like facilitating the huddle and like lining people up correctly and quickly. Shane Steichen kept talking about how he runs the operation more smoothly, which is like, first of all, just really bearish that A-Rich in like season 3 can't like operate the huddle.
Right.
But you know, Steichen wants to run a lot of plays. He wants to play very fast. Jones can allow him to do that. So I think this is going to be a very fun game. It's also filled with explosive players on the Miami Dolphins that can be pace escalators. Hill, Waddle, Achane obviously are 3 of the more likely candidates to break a 75-yard touchdown from anywhere on the field at any given moment, which just adds a lot of fun to games that they're involved in. I think that the Miami Dolphins have generally been underrated as an offense for fantasy football because people don't take them seriously as a real life NFL team. And I don't take them seriously as a real life NFL team.
No, but everyone has been like Mike McDaniel poisoned, but like,
right.
We're talking about literally 2 years ago, best offense in the NFL, most yards, most points 2 years ago.
Yeah. And their offense with Tua last year was like gimmicky and weird in how it operated, but it was actually reasonably effective. Like, they moved the ball. It was annoying that all of the way that they moved the ball was dinking and dunking to a running back and a tight end that nobody drafted. But like, they were fine with Tua. They would have made the playoffs very comfortably if Tua never got concussed. Tua's playing this week. So I agree. I think Hill, Waddle, Achane, Tagovailoa, all are firmly in play. And wouldn't bother with the tight ends. But yeah, and I think on the Colts side, Daniel Jones, I think, at least according to some sites, is the highest point per dollar quarterback this week.
I think he might be in the Run the Sims optimal. I haven't ran it yet.
If he's not, he's close. Like, he's certainly in the mix.
I mean, the Dolphins don't have a single starting caliber secondary player.
No.
So that seems like an issue. I'm hip to Downs, probably more hip to Michael Pittman Jr.
Agreed,
frankly. Yeah. No Pierce, no Mitchell for me. I think Warren actually is playable.
Totally playable.
Would you? I suppose the question is: are you doing Daniel Jones double, single, I think probably single is the way to play it, but I'm not kicking a Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Down, Tyreek Hill lineup out of my 150 set.
The double is totally fine because Pittman, Downs, and Warren are all under 5K. So like you don't even really need like that massive of a ceiling. So I think you could do Jones and 2 of Downs, Pittman, Warren. It's fine. I probably prefer the single just because I think the best path to a Daniel Jones upside game includes 1 rushing touchdown. And so ideally he throws a touchdown to the guy you play and he throws a rushing touchdown and you're locked and loaded. So yeah, I think my favorite way to play this game would be Jones. I'll say Pittman, but you could easily play Warren or Downs instead. And then one of I'm not on the Tyreek Hill train for season long, but I guess if you want to do it in DFS, that's probably the way to do it. I'll say my absolute favorite is Jones, Pittman, Waddle, because I am who I am. But if you want to do that exact same lineup, but sub in Downs or Warren or Achane or Hill, absolutely. And could you do it the other way? 100%. You could do Tua with one of Waddle or Hill. And
it's just like, dude, in his
or Jonathan Taylor is completely fine as well.
In his pomp, man. This is like one of the most absurd price. Like I know Tyreek Hill is not the same guy, but I mean, imagine if he is the same guy and you faded at this price in this matchup. The Tennessee Titans traveling to play at the Denver Broncos. All I'm looking for in this game is just some signs of life from Cameron Ward. I mean, Ridley at 5,000 is like kind of like a eat your veggies DFS play. I bet you'll probably get a decent amount of him if you're using Sims. Dobbins, Harvey, who knows? Sutton, I suppose, at 6,000 is kind of playable. I don't really think Ingram is all that playable. You know who is playable, though, at like absolutely microscopic ownership? One Mr. Tony Pollard will be under 10%. Yeah. Will Tony Pollard lead the slate in touches?
My prediction in the Hitchhiker's Guide to Running Back, which will be published like within an hour or two of this program ending, is that Tony Pollard leads all running backs in snap share this week.
Yeah, let's go.
I mean, when Spears missed last year, he was one of the only running backs in the NFL that was the most likely running back to be on the field in literally every game situation. Like, as someone who writes about these backfields every week and gets very granular, like, Pollard is the most likely running back to be on the field if it's 3rd and 10. He's the most likely running back to be on the field in the 2-minute drill if it's on the 1-yard line, if it's 1st and 10. Every possible game situation you can think of, Tony Pollard is the most likely running back to be lined up beside or behind Cameron Ward this week. He basically will only come off the field on like the 7 to 8 plays that he needs a sip of Gatorade, in which case one of Julius Chestnut or Khalil Mullings will trot out there. He's going to project awesomely. Denver last year, elite pass defense, okay run defense. I think really with Pollard, what you're guarding against is like Cam Ward's first start against one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. Does this Denver defense just completely fuck up his life, right? Like if Denver wins this game 27-3,
it probably will, by the way. Like that's probably is the most likely
the fear, thing, right? Like if Denver might win this game 27-3, and then Tony Pollard has like 19 carries for 71 yards, 2 receptions.
I was thinking 19 carries, 47 yards, 2 catches, 8 yards. Yeah.
Right. Like it's very easy to see how Tony Pollard has a completely empty calorie 11-point week. And you look, and I'm writing, buy low on Tony Pollard. He had a 92% snap share for no points this week. That's in the cards, but I do think he's playable. I don't think any other Titan. I mean, like, it's just not worth it. You don't need to take the moonshot on like Alec Manor. I mean, I guess you could play Ridley. I'll just say it. I'm worried about Pat Surtain. He's going to be
he's worried, folks. He's worried about Pat Surtain.
If I was going to play a non-Pollard Titan, it would be Chig Okonkwo at $3,400.
All right. Well, time for you to learn Gunnar Helm, brother. Yeah, this is just not a super interesting fantasy game in the context of this slate. A more interesting game, the San Francisco 49ers traveling to play at the Seattle Seahawks. Evan Silva and Rich Rebar told me that the Seahawks might have the best defense in the NFL this season. Who knows? What I do know is that I am playing the ever-living shit out of Christian McCaffrey at 7,300. Might just play him on every team. Maybe I'll sub him out for Bijan in a team or two. Juwan Jennings returned to practice. I have been kind of ambivalent about shot demon Ricky Pearsall's ability to earn targets with other high-level NFL players on the field for the entirety of the offseason. Kittle, I mean, I think this projection looks a touch high at 17.8. DK points, that seems like a lot for George Kittle. And then on the Seahawks side, I mean, Ken Walker is certainly a play. And JSN, maybe if you want to do some game stacking style stuff. But really, to me, it's just a lot of Christian McCaffrey for me this week.
Yeah, man. He projects pretty good.
Who could have predicted such a thing?
Me and you were the two voters to have Christian McCaffrey on our team with Ron Stewart, and we were outvoted.
We were outvoted.
We have Sedarian Lamb on the team. Shout out to Run the Sims for not kowtowing to big Brian Robinson out there on Twitter that thinks, he's going to be in a timeshare with Christian McCaffrey. I'll need to see that to believe it. Christian McCaffrey is going to be getting all the snaps he can handle. Yeah, love it. I'm gonna that Juwan Jennings Ricky Pearsall split is interesting. That feels a little like computers don't fully take into account the fact that Juwan Jennings hasn't practiced with the team for a month.
It's just like, well, you got to start assigning it. What'll happen? Because I'm seeing that there's an update here. One of these guys, Jordan Watkins, Russell Gage, or MBS, is going to get. I think Russell Gage might be out for the year or something, so it'll probably be MBS to take you behind Fantasy Data, which is like a company that you've never heard of that powers everything that you use. They maintain the rosters for Run the Sims. So my guess would be is that MBS is going to get assigned like 5% target share here, and that will nuke some of these other projections to some. It's not going to nuke Christian McCaffrey's, but it will probably nuke Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle, a smidge. Jennings at 4,900 to me though looks like a stone jam. I think
Pearsall's the jam.
Okay, give me your supporting evidence.
He's practiced with the team for the last month, while Juwan Jennings has not. Are they installing a bunch of first read Jennings plays? He just joined the team this week.
Dude, he's third and Juwan. I would buy this if I thought this was like a new situation. We're talking about man, I almost just did a classic Davis Mattek and made something up right there. Juwan Jennings caught Brock Purdy's first ever NFL pass. It could very well be true. I don't know if it is. Juwan Jennings certainly would have been there playing in Brock Purdy's first NFL game. He's been a 49er with Shanahan for his entire career. This is not like Quinshon Judkins showing up to work or whatever. He knows the system.
Yeah. I just they weren't even certain. Kyle Shanahan is so meticulous about his game planning. And were they even sure that Juwan Jennings would be playing in this game? I don't know. I think it's odd. I guess it feels incongruent to me that a week ago, everybody was telling me, yeah, man, we should definitely be letting Juwan Jennings fall to the 8th round of every redraft.
I was not telling you that. I was
fucking fine to take in the 5th for some reason.
Nope, I was slurping. I was Dipperino slurping. I want this on the record.
All right. I mean, I was slurping too. Look, do you think it brings me any joy to say anything bad about a vault for life in Juwan Jennings, who caught a beautiful Hail Mary from Joshua Dobbs against the Georgia Bulldogs between the hedges? No. Juwan Jennings, I love you. I wish you nothing but the best. I wish you a lifetime of happiness. But I guess this is just the DFS people saying that all the seasonal drafters were wrong and bad. But I think it is odd that we were taking Pearsall 3 rounds ahead of Jennings 3 days ago. And now we're no, Juwan Jennings is going to just straight up project for more points and he should be more owned at a higher dollar. I don't know about that. Maybe by week 3. Sure. I think that Ricky Pearsall this week, though, is probably the first read more frequently than Juwan Jennings. I think both are totally playable, especially given how much ownership is going to be on McCaffrey. I'm shading to Pearsall this week between the two of them.
Okay. Any interest in Walker? Any interest in JSN? Any of these guys?
Well, Walker Sharps is going to be one of the most interesting splits. I think I have less of a strong feel for this one than I did talking about the Tampa Bay one, but this is another one where if you are a person that has a strong feeling about how this workload will be distributed, then I think you should action that. It's worth saying that for 2 straight years, the fantasy community has propagated the idea that Zach Charbonnet will be playing Ken Walker into a split backfield. And at no point have the two players been on the field together in which Seattle has done anything except load up Ken Walker with all of the touches and let Charbonnet have a couple breathers, snaps, and a bunch of third downs. If you think that will continue, then I think Ken Walker at 5,900 is a very nice play. If you think Charbonnet is going to have a more material role this year in base, then obviously probably a stay away. I think that generally speaking, I'm pretty into the Seattle passing game as well. I think that San Francisco has a reputation of being a good defense because they have been historically. Their defense, I think, is going to be total garbage
they
this
like
year.
cut all their dudes.
Yeah, so I think this is a chance to like get in on the ground floor of actually San Francisco is closer to the Cowboys and Bengals than they are to like the Chiefs and the Ravens, like in terms of a team that is going to be all offense, no defense. I think they're a team we're going to target this year. And I'd be down with starting early with the Seattle Seahawks. So I think JSN totally in play. I think Walker, depending on your vibes, totally in play.
Cool with that. The Houston Texans traveling to play at the Los Angeles Rams. Nico Collins not actually like getting giga jammed in the projections. Christian Kirk actually questionable with a hamstring injury. I'm not playing any Texans running back. Rams, very interesting.
Noel.
His name is Noel. Puka Nacua is if you are a projections based drafter, is like the biggest jam this week. He I think is the 4th highest raw projection of any player on DraftKings. I done about 40 of my BRs this week, and Puka is my most drafted guy. I am jamming the shit out of Mr. Nacua. NFL career leader right now in targets per route run.
Yeah, love Puka Nacua this week. I also love Nico Collins this week. Those are probably the two. Probably pretty tough to play them together because they're expensive, but those are probably the two guys from this game. Kyron is obviously totally fine. I guess I probably won't play him for ideological reasons because there's several other players that you could play, but there's certainly nothing wrong with it. And then I would just not bother with the Houston backfield at all. Maybe the entire season, but certainly not this week. I'm interested if Kirk misses. Wednesday missed practice with a hammy is a little not great. I'm curious to see what happens with Higgins and Noel and Hutchinson and how that all distributes, because that could be where people tend to look for value. I think there's probably enough value on the slate that I don't need to spend a lot of time down there, but I'm curious to see how that affects everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nacua is just like one of the 7 best plays of the slate. Kyron is certainly playable. Kyron is always an awesome play when everyone has left him for dead. When people have dreams of Jarquez Hunter being like a pace and space back, and then you look up and Kyron Williams has another 2 touchdown game. The Texans defense is good. I don't know if that really matters for Kyron Williams. Either he scores twice or he does not. Final game of the slate. The Detroit Lions with a 22.5 point team total, a 25 point team total for the Packers. This, I believe, is the lowest team total that the Detroit Lions have had in the last 2 seasons. Is it Ben Johnson? Is it Tanner Engstrom, Drew Engstrom? I mean, what are we? St. Brown,
Tanner Engstrad.
Tanner Engstrad. Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. I think that they're jams. We're going to get a little bit of deflated ownership on Detroit.
No, hugely deflated ownership. None of them are going to be 10%. Not even
all year, you fucking people, and I literally mean you, Davis Mattek, fucking people, have been telling me how actually it's fine. Actually, we can just take Amon-Ra at the 1-2 turn, and we can take Jameson Williams in the middle of the 4th, and Sam Laporte is totally fine, and Isaac Tesla's going to break out, and Jahmyr Gibbs is maybe the 101. And don't forget about it. Actually, yeah, there's enough room for all of them. So let's see it. Let's see it this week in DFS, how that spreadsheet populates on the football field. Look, I think if you want to do Jameson Williams, my favorite way to play Jameson Williams is other than the 2 main event teams that he's on against my will, is as a 6% owned player in daily fantasy sports. I think that seems like a great idea to me in a very exciting game environment. But my favorite play, my gold star play, because I think Drew Dinkmeyer said we're not allowed to use the term flag plant on this show. My gold star play is Jahmyr Gibbs for the same reasons that I said about Bucky Irving.
Let me tell you, the projections bros are not playing Gibbs in this slate. I can guarantee.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Look at that nice little 6.6% ownership. I mean, look, here's a guy that I think should be going at the 102 in seasonal fantasy football drafts. He's in a very potentially fun game against the Green Bay Packers, and he is not going to be owned at all. He's going to be between like 5 to 8% owned. If you believe that Gibbs is going to widen the gap from Montgomery this season, which may or may not happen, this will be the week that it's not factored into the projections. So similar reason as Bucky Irving, I think with Gibbs and Irving, they are 2 players that I think are supremely talented, that I think have a plausible case to just be straight up under projected based on the inputs that go into these systems. And if you happen to be right, you're getting a player that might, if your inputs are better than the inputs that the Sims are using, have been efficiently owned at like 15%, but are actually going to be owned at like 8% because they're going off of inputs that might be stale. So I love Jahmyr Gibbs a lot in this spot. He's going to be probably my most owned running back this week.
I love it. I applaud your effort. I applaud your logic. It's a spot where projections are so likely to be wrong, either via market share incorrectness or efficiency. Jahmyr Gibbs can just average 9 yards per carry in a game. Yeah.
You have the out with Jahmyr Gibbs that like actually everything I just said could be completely incorrect.
But it doesn't matter.
In the same 50-50 split with David Montgomery he's always been in, but he runs for 2 80-yard touchdowns, so it's fine.
So it's totally fine. On the other side of this game, Jacob just gave you some fun. Jacob just logged in with a good hot take. I'm here to bring you back down to earth. Inconvenient truth you. Josh Jacobs, 22 rushes, 88 yards, 4 receptions, 16 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Lions never really get going. Jaden Reed is not there, and it's just all Josh Jacobs. You know, Marshawn Lloyd not able to play. I believe Jacobs had a 32 rush game last year. You know, it's so self-evident to me that this is one of the paths in this game. The other thing I would like to add is if Jaden Reed does not play, I'm not going to be able to help myself.
The slapped even.
$3,400 Dontavian Wicks with his competition being rookie Matthew Golden.
The candle.
You have to light the candle if Jaden Reed does not play. And on I believe on Wednesday he was off on the side. We'll see what's happening on Thursday. Savion Williams banged up as well. This could actually be a sneaky game stack if your part of the game ends up being true and the Lions are still the Lions, because the Packers are one of the most sensitive teams to game script in terms of play calling of any team in the NFL. They absolutely put the boot of their heel on your throat, the heel of their boot on your throat, rather, when they are leading, and they are happy to go super pass heavy down 10 points or so.
I'll say something disgusting. I'm going to be monitoring ownership closely throughout the week. I think that the 1.7 on Matthew Golden is like a thing that makes sense in computers. I think that that's not what we will actually see when we log into our apps. If I believed that ownership at all, I would just like say Matthew Golden in every single lineup.
Yeah, jam.
I don't believe that ownership. So I think what I will play this week, Romeo Doubs is gonna.
A
little bit. Just a little bit.
God,
haven't you ever loved a nice 93% route share? You know, people are excited about the rookie. People are slapping it up with Dontavian Wicks maybe a little bit. Jaden Reed, I don't know if he's going to play or not. If he does, it's going to be limited. But nobody's coming for Romeo Doubs' routes $4,300. My little bring back with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has a nice 80-yard touchdown. Romeo catches like 4 deep ins. One of them is a touchdown. We get a little 464-1 action. I think he's in play. But Golden, if you told me Matthew Golden will be under 10% owned even, then like I want him in almost every single lineup.
He will be under 10%. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I don't understand.
10%.
Yeah, $4,900 Golden. I like let's go. I mean, let's rock. I think this is a situation where I'm not expecting a ramp up period for him. Like everyone on this team's hurt. He was drafted in round 1. I have expressed my skepticism of this prospect profile, but I think if he's good, we're going to find out pretty quickly. So I would like to be ahead of the game on him from a DFS standpoint. Like I think we should know within the first month what we have on our hands, and I want to be a week early, not a week late on him.
Yep. All right. Let's do it. Let's build a lineup. I have tickets from Best Ball Season for the Millionaire Maker, and I'm just going to go ahead and enter this lineup. And I will toss you the first pick, brother.
All right. Well, I just said he was my Gold Star play. I'll slot him right in. Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's put him in the RB1 hole here.
All right. I love it. We'll go Jahmyr Gibbs. I am going to do Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill is the best GPP play of the slate, assuming he has anything in the tank. He probably doesn't, as evidence. I mean, not a team captain. It's all a mess. But Tyreek, in a dome, track star. Let's do it.
Well, look, for doing Tyreek Hill, that gives me a very easy excuse to play a member of the Indianapolis Colts. Can't wait to spend 3 hours with this depressing football team on Sunday. I will go with Michael Pittman Jr. Tyreek Hill, bit of a volatile personality. Let's get a nice, stable veteran presence into the lineup. We'll bring it back with MPJ.
All right. I actually don't think he is going to be discounted at all, but I'll do Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones actually probably does end up being one of the more owned quarterbacks of the slate, but I don't even really care.
All right. Well, we've just built out a cheap little stack for ourselves here with Jones and Pittman. So this gives me my excuse to play, get expensive at running back here. And I'm not going to dick around. I'm not going to be fancy about it. We're going to play Christian McCaffrey.
I love it. I think it's very strong. What I'm trying to decide right now is where do we want, I think the easiest spot to save is probably at tight end. Now, do we want to play Igbuka in this lineup? I'm trying to think. These are all pretty popular combinations of players. Well, I'm actually going to leave the hard decision to you. I'm going to play James Conner at our flex. We've already bought ourselves a good amount of ownership discount by playing Gibbs. That should be a little bit weird, but what are we doing?
Right. I'll complete our under-owned mini correlation. I will take Matthew Golden instead of Emeka Egbuka as our third wide receiver.
All right. That basically puts us in a totally whatever spot we want part of the game tree. So we should be able to play David Njoku and any defense here possible. Let's do the Seahawks actually. Seahawks against McCaffrey. That's the Rich Rebar told me they were the best defense in the NFL.
Brock Purdy throws a pick 6. There's discourse, and then they got to throw a bunch of checkdowns to McCaffrey. That's the path.
All right, there we go. The lineup build: Daniel Jones, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman Jr., Matthew Golden, David Njoku, James Conner, and the Seattle Seahawks. If you see that lineup winning the Millionaire Maker, know that you could have played it yourself, but you chose not to dupe us.
Split it with us. You could have split.
Yes.
You could have split the million with us.
You know what? I'll tell you this much: if we win the Millionaire Maker with this lineup, I'll give someone who comments on this video $10,000 US.
Wow.
How about that?
I appreciate that.
Jacob won't, but I will.
I won't. Yeah.
Make sure that you are subscribed to Thinking About Thinking. A link to that is in the description of this show. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you are subscribed for daily fantasy football videos, and we'll be back with you next week.